Hello, and welcome to a very special episode of the Thoughtful Therapist podcast. It's recently come to my attention that 90% of podcasts never make it to 10 episodes. And of the ones that do, 90% never make it to 20 episodes. Well, this is episode 15, which means I'm still here. And I've already got at least 10 more episodes planned. So I figured there's only one reasonable response. It's a celebration! Quick, cut to photo montage. Okay. That may have been a slightly disproportionate response to making 15 podcast episodes with just 1,241 views. Or maybe it's 88.6 people who watched every episode. I don't actually know how that math works. But I've made 15, and I think that's worth noticing. There's something buried inside that ridiculous little performance that I keep running into. We're really uncomfortable celebrating ourselves. We're fine with birthdays, graduations, promotions, all of the big public moments that everyone already agrees count. But showing up, just continuing forward, that one feels almost embarrassing to mark. I've noticed that in myself. I'm genuinely happy when other people succeed. Clients, friends, my wife, my kids. I love watching someone get traction. But when it's me, the first sentence out of my mouth is usually some version of, yeah, but, or it wasn't really that hard. Anyone could have done it. I just got lucky. It's not that big of a deal. It's just what I was supposed to do. But I started wondering where that reflex comes from. At what point did simply acknowledging my own effort start feeling like arrogance? Because somewhere along the way, I think that we started to confuse celebrating ourselves with comparing ourselves. They're not the same thing. A celebration says, I'm glad I kept going. And the comparison says, I'm better than someone else. And they're worlds apart. I'm not even talking about believing you're better than anyone. I'm talking about something much smaller. Looking at something that required real effort from you and allowing yourself to say, I showed up. That's it. No trophy, no announcement, no standing ovation, just that recognition that today you kept going. And I don't know, maybe in this episode I'm talking to myself more than anyone else because I'm honestly really bad at this. I mean, I'm terrible. The entire opening was surprisingly uncomfortable for me to make. Not because it was goofy. That part was actually kind of fun. But it was uncomfortable because it was about me. I mean, I didn't even want to walk at my graduation. My thinking was always, like I said, well, that's what I'm supposed to do. I mean, I genuinely actively dislike celebrating my birthday. I'm kind of a Scrooge about Christmas. I've even caught myself saying in the past that adults celebrating their birthdays is silly. But looking back, I don't think I actually believe those things as much as I felt like I did. I think they protected me from having to celebrate myself. And I do wonder how much of that is fear. Because if I admit that I did something well or that I'm capable of doing something well, then maybe I have to keep doing it well. Maybe now people will expect something different of me. Maybe I'll expect something different. And then when I inevitably fail, which we all do from time to time, maybe it'll hurt more or the disappointment will be greater. But pretending that nothing matters does not protect us from failure. It doesn't protect me from failure. It just kind of robs us of the joy of progress. You know, when I was in college, I had this little tradition every Flag Day. I'd throw a Flag Day party. Nothing super extravagant. Just a handful of flags, a bunch of friends. Remember, I was much younger, and a fair amount of alcohol. I always thought it was hilarious. I mean, Flag Day isn't exactly known for bringing cities to a standstill with its value of importance. No one was asking for a party. Nothing crazy had happened. The flag hadn't changed. There wasn't some historic anniversary. I just simply decided that this was a day worth marking. And looking back, I think those ridiculous little parties were probably doing more than I realized. They were practice. Practice at just stopping and saying, this counts. Even when the rest of the world has just no opinion about it at all. Because maybe celebrations aren't really about the event. They're just taking the time to notice. Maybe it's just refusing to let life become one long blur where everything meaningful only exists in hindsight. Maybe they're just simple little reminders that this moment, this ordinary little moment, actually happened. And then I became a dad. And suddenly the celebration standards changed completely. I mean, we celebrate everything with little kids. He took 3 steps without falling. Standing ovation. Great job, buddy. Oh my goodness, she got her first tooth. Quick, send it to the family group text. Pictures, phone calls, the whole production. Lost a tooth? I mean, this is apparently a major life event. There's money under pillows, magic is involved. And if my son makes it through an entire day without biting his sister, buddy, that's huge. I'm so proud of you. In potty training, honestly, if you've ever potty trained a toddler, you know there are moments that deserve confetti. We celebrate all of it. And it's almost automatic. And we don't do that because our children have accomplished extraordinary things. We do it because on some level, we still understand something. We understand that noticing effort changes people. Celebrating small victories gives them confidence. Because we know that the power of celebration makes them more likely to continue down that path of growth. We know it helps them feel good about themselves. So when and where did we lose that knowledge? When did we get so hard on ourselves? On our families, on our friends, on our colleagues? What kind of world are we building when the small wins go unnoticed? Not just celebrating ourselves, but celebrating everyone around us. Spreading a little bit more love, a little bit more joy. Living like life is worth celebrating. And take a second and imagine, what would your partner be like with just a fraction more confidence, a little more self-love, and just a little bit more motivation to keep trudging forward? Because that's when someone feels like their effort matters. They're far more likely to keep showing up. When we are celebrating our children over potty training or teeth or walking, They don't hear like, you are perfect. I don't think. I think what they hear is something more like, I see you. I saw that. Oh, I noticed. What you did mattered. And maybe that's what celebration's really always been. Not exaggerating accomplishments like that photo montage, but simply saying something like, hey, that effort, it wasn't invisible. I saw it. And maybe that's enough. So the question that keeps sitting with me is, where did we lose that? Not for children, but for ourselves, for our partners, friends, and the people we work beside every day. At some point, it's like the rules changed. That same species that once threw a parade because someone made it across the living room now feels awkward, giving an adult credit for making it through a difficult week. Somewhere celebration became almost childish or unnecessary, even embarrassing. I don't know. Maybe we got too careful, we're tired. Or more like me, we just became afraid that noticing something good about ourselves would somehow make us arrogant. And I don't think that's true. Because I don't think arrogance is celebrating effort. I think arrogance is believing your effort makes you more valuable than someone else. And they're not the same thing. Not even close. Sometimes I wonder what kind of world we're building when these small wins go completely unmarked. Not just inside of our own heads, but between us, between everyone, between society. And it's funny because honestly, my wife is so much better at this than I am. Although, if I'm being totally fair, she's actually not very good at doing it for herself either. But man, she notices, she celebrates, she marks the little things. And I'm incredibly lucky for that. Sometimes she reminds me to celebrate. Sometimes I have to remind her. Because I think almost all of us are better at extending grace to someone else than we are at offering it to ourselves. I think a lot of us have kind of outsourced that noticing. We've decided that someone else has to tell us that our effort mattered. Someone at work, someone at home, I don't know, a teacher, achieving a diploma or a degree or a certificate. And for some people, it's a paycheck or someone on the internet. I don't know, maybe it's enough likes or enough views. Maybe it's enough subscribers. Then we'll finally believe what I did counted. But what if just showing up is allowed to count, even when no one else is watching? Because I think that effort still has value, even before anyone applauds it. And I'm interested to know what would happen if we became just a little more generous about noticing it in the people around us too. Because I don't think we're starving for achievement. I think we're starving for acknowledgement. Not flattery or empty praise. Just someone saying something like, I know how hard that was. I'm so glad you kept going. I often think about New Year's resolutions with this conversation, because every January, millions of people decide, this is the year everything changes. I'm going to get healthy. I'm going to get my checkbook balanced. I'm going to work on my relationships. I'm going to stop X habit. I'm going to go here with my career. Maybe even just change who I am. And it's hopeful, optimistic, sometimes a little unrealistic, but hopeful. And then February shows up. Life gets busy. A workout gets skipped. The diet slips. The budget falls apart. And almost immediately a different story begins. It's see, I never follow through. This is why I don't bother. The resolution didn't just fail. It becomes evidence that the next attempt probably isn't worth making either. That's such a dangerous thing. Because we rarely quit because of one bad day. I think that we quit because we start telling ourselves this like story about what that day means. And I think that same pattern shows up almost everywhere. College careers, marriage, parenting, building a business, learning an instrument's a big one, and apparently making a podcast. The goals that actually shape our lives. The goals that usually shape our lives usually don't happen in these like big dramatic moments. They happen over a really long period of time. No one throws you a party because you studied on a Tuesday night when you were exhausted. Nobody applauds because you decided to stay in a difficult conversation instead of walking away. And no one notices the morning you dragged yourself out of bed, even though every part of you wanted to stay there. Now, those moments don't really look like much from the outside, but everyone has them. And we convince ourselves that they aren't much at all. And I think our workplaces accidentally reinforce this. Most people genuinely have no idea how difficult your day was. They don't know what you carried. They don't know how much discipline it took just to finish that project. And if you're someone who's going through grief, sometimes it's as simple as they have no idea how difficult it was to get out of bed, brush your teeth, and change your clothes. Or have that conversation. They're usually not being cruel. They simply just don't have the information. But if no one marks that effort, and especially us, then the default assumption becomes, well, I guess it wasn't that important. And then radio silence. And that silence starts to feel like proof that the work we did didn't matter. Proof that any progress wasn't real. Even proof that we're just spinning our wheels. And the moment that that silence starts feeling like proof, it almost feels reasonable to quit. And it's not because you failed. It's because we think that we have shown ourselves that nothing meaningful has happened. And that's why it seems to me that celebrating small milestones matters so much. Not to inflate our accomplishments, but because we're trying to tell the truth. And the truth is that meaningful lives are not built in these giant moments. They're built one ordinary day at a time. Big things aren't made from big moments. They're made of Tuesdays, where you're up studying all night, even though you're exhausted. They're made of ordinary mornings, low-key evenings, and long strings of days that feel way too small to count. Days that all by themselves don't look like anything, but together become kind of everything. Maybe that's why we celebrate graduations instead of homework, weddings instead of, getting through that spat, finish lines instead of the thousands of steps that accurately got us there. Instead of the thousands of steps that actually got us there. Life isn't mostly finish lines. It's just regular days. And if we refuse to let those regular days matter, the dream slowly starts, starving somewhere in the middle. And it's not a lack of ability. We just stop noticing progress. So, I'm trying something a little bit different with this one. And I'm going to share my goal with you. I've made 15 episodes. And I've just set a goal to reach 7,500 views by episode 26. Now that's 11 more episodes from now. And some of them will definitely be better than others. And many of the weeks The numbers will feel exciting. Some weeks they will feel flat. And I might even be embarrassed by how low some of them are. But I'm saying the goal out loud anyway. Not because I'm certain I'll reach it. Because honestly, that's a lot, and I probably won't. But because I don't want the work that I'm doing between here and there to become invisible or not measured to me. Because if the only celebration comes in the destination, then I'll spend 11 episodes pretending that the journey to get there doesn't matter. And that journey is kind of where life happens. Maybe that's true for you too. Maybe you're working towards a degree. You're trying to build a business. You're raising children or trying to repair a marriage. Some people are just trying to become healthier or trying to stay sober. But most of us are simply trying to make it through a season of life that feels heavier than you ever thought it would. None of those things happen all at once. They're built slowly, one decision, one conversation, and one ordinary day at a time. And most of those days, no one's going to celebrate for you. So maybe that's your job. Not to convince yourself that you're extraordinary. Or because you think that every little thing deserves a big parade. But because you deserve to be noticed. Those little things you do deserve to be noticed. And especially by you. And maybe if we became a little better at noticing our own efforts, we'd become better at noticing everyone else's too. Imagine the change that would make. I mean, how different would our families be? How different would they feel about themselves? I mean, our friendships, our workplaces. I mean, imagine if people weren't constantly wondering whether anyone noticed how hard they were trying. Sometimes just a real small encouragement changes the entire direction of someone's day. Sometimes it's enough to keep them going. But I don't know. Maybe today, give yourself 20 seconds like I did at the beginning of this episode. And just remind yourself in an unedited version, I showed up. That's all you say. Because that's enough. And then if you have anything left in the tank, offer that same gift to someone else. I don't know, wife, husband, kid, friend. I don't know, sad Joe at work. The cashier who's had a obviously horrible long day. Because you never know who that person is who almost never hears I noticed. Because we might have outgrown saying it to our children, but we never outgrew wanting to hear it. We're just adults now, and we're pretending that we did. Life gives us enough reason to quit, enough reasons to doubt ourselves, enough reasons to believe our small efforts mean nothing. We just need to stop helping it along. We can choose to notice, to mark the ordinary moments that become extraordinary. Maybe the life we're hoping for isn't built in the celebration. It's just built in remembering to celebrate. That's how I'm thinking of it for now. Thanks for thinking this through with me. And thanks for showing up. Until next time, remember to take it one thought at a time. I want to give a real quick shout out to Synergy Health Group. Thank you guys so much for your unwavering support. Again, guys, they do virtual counseling. Look them up. Give them a call. You know, they have counselors that can really help point you in the right direction. Thanks.